Everyone loves to listen to a good book, and there are so many wonderful ones to choose, so we decided to bring you this podcast of Stories Come to Life. Each episode features a story from either classic or modern literature, especially chosen to be interesting and exciting to hear. So sit back, relax, and listen to this story come to life. Welcome to Stories Come to Life. I am your host, Kathryn Lopez Luker, and this is episode 21. As we have just finished a book, this episode will be a refreshing poetic interlude before we begin the next story. Whatever the season, whatever the weather, whether your mood is happy or sad, there are poems to help you find solace and beauty and companionship as you walk through life. So sit back, relax, and listen to these poems come to life. Poetic Interlude II. The Kitten at Play by William Wordsworth. See the kitten on the wall, sporting with the leaves that fall, withered leaves 1, 2, and 3, falling from the elder tree, through the calm and frosty air of the morning, bright and fair. See the kitten how she starts, crouches, stretches, paws and darts, with a tiger leap halfway. Now she meets her coming prey, lets it go as fast, and then has it in her power again. Now she works with 3 and 4 like an Indian conjurer. Quick as he in feats of art, gracefully she plays her part. Yet were gazing thousands there. What would little Tabby care? Autumn by Walter de la Mare. There is wind where the rose was, cold rain where sweet grass was, and clouds like sheep stream o'er the steep, grey skies where the lark was. Not gold where your hair was, not warm where your hand was, but phantom, forlorn, beneath the thorn, your ghost where your face was. Sad winds where your voice was, tears, tears where my heart was, and ever with me, child, ever with me, silence where hope was. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," I said, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with a mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, Nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee by these angels, he hath sent thee respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, O quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the door, shall be lifted nevermore. When Fishes Set Umbrellas Up, by Christina Rossetti. When fishes set umbrellas up, if the raindrops run, lizards will want their parasols to shade them from the sun. Little Billy, by William Makepeace Thackeray. There were 3 sailors of Bristol city who took a boat and went to sea. But first with beef and captain's biscuits and pickled pork they loaded she. There was gorging Jack and guzzling Jimmy, and the youngest, he was little Billy. Now when they'd got as far as the equator, they'd nothing left but one split pea. Says gorging Jack to guzzling Jimmy, I am extremely hungry. To gorging Jack says guzzling Jimmy, we've nothing left, us must eat we. Says gorging Jack to guzzling Jimmy, with one another we shouldn't agree. There's little Bill, he's young and tender. We're old and tough, so let's eat he. Oh, Billy, we're going to kill and eat you, so undo the button of your chemmy. When Bill received this information, he used his pocket handkerchief. First let me say my catechism, which my poor mammy taught to me. Make haste, says guzzling Jimmy. Well, Jack pulled out his snicker-snee. So Billy went up to the main t'gallant mast, and down he fell on his bended knee. He scarce had come to the 12th commandment, when up he jumps. There's land I see! Jerusalem and Madagascar and North and South America. There's the British flag a-riding at the anchor with Admiral Napier, K.C.B. So when they got aboard of the Admiral's, he hanged Fat Jack and flogged Jimmy. But as for little Bill, he made him the captain of a 73. Zebra, by Isaac Dinesen. The eagle's shadow runs across the plain, towards the distant, nameless, air-blue mountains. But the shadows of the young round zebra sit close between their delicate hoofs all day where they stand immovable, and wait for the evening, wait to stretch out, blue, upon a plain painted brick red by the sunset, and to wander to the water-hole. The Roman Road, by Thomas Hardy. The Roman road runs straight and bare as the pale parting line in hair across the heath, and thoughtful men contrast its days of now and then and delve and measure and compare, visioning on the vacant air helmed legionnaires who proudly rear the eagle as they pace again the Roman road. But no tall brass-helmed legionnaire haunts it for me. Uprises there a mother's form upon my ken, guiding my infant steps, as when we walked that ancient thoroughfare, the Roman road. The Peacock Has a Score of Eyes, by Christina Rossetti. The peacock has a score of eyes with which he cannot see. The codfish has a silent sound, however that may be. No dandelions tell the time, although they turn to clocks. Cat's cradle does not hold the cat, nor foxglove fit the fox. Annabel Lee, by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of far many wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I see the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. Snow by Stephen Titra. Snow descends, sugar softly, and whirling white begins to spin. The highlands drift unevenly like brocaded silk and satin. Great mounds of frost flow gently, covering hill and dale as well, for flakes of quiet beauty care little where they dwell. Snow crystals fall so easily, always in fantastic shapes, designs that dance so gracefully in delicate cloud escapes. I see castles everywhere, hear all the children laughing. Warm music fills the frozen air with the sweetness of their singing. The Moon's the North Wind's Cookie by Vachel Lindsay. The moon's the north wind's cookie. He bites it day by day until there's but a rim of scraps that crumble all away. The south wind is a baker. He kneads clouds in his den and bakes a crisp new moon. That greedy north wind eats again. I'm Nobody, Who Are You by Emily Dickinson. I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us, don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong day to an admiring bog. Manhole Covers by Carl Shapiro. The beauty of manhole covers, what of that? Like medals struck by a great savage Khan, like Mayan calendar stones, unliftable, undecipherable, not like old Electrum, chased and scored, mottoed and sculptured to a turn, but notched and whelked and pocked and smashed, with the great company names, gentle Bethlehem, smiling United States. This rust-proof artifact of my street, long after roads are melted away, will lie sidewise in the graves of the iron old world, bitten at the edges, strong with its cryptic American, its dated beauty. The Snow by Emily Dickinson. It sifts from leaden sieves. It powders all the wood. It fills with alabaster wool the wrinkles of the road. It makes an even face of mountain and of plain, unbroken forehead from the east unto the east again. It reaches to the fence, it wraps it rail by rail, till it is lost in fleeces. It flings a crystal veil on stump and stack and stem, the summer's empty room, acres of seams where harvests were recordless but for them. It ruffles wrists of posts as ankles of a queen, then stills its artisans like ghosts, denying they have been. Central Park at Dusk by Sarah Teasdale. Buildings above the leafless trees loom high as castles in a dream, while one by one the lamps come out to thread the twilight with a gleam. There is no sign of leaf or bud. A hush is over everything, silent as women wait for love. The world is waiting for the spring. Boy with His Hair Cut Short by Muriel Rukeyser. Sunday shuts down on this 20th century evening. The L passes. Twilight and bulb define the brown room, the overstuffed plum sofa, the boy, and the girl's thin hands above his head. A neighbor's radio sings stocks, news, serenade. He sits at the table, head down, the young, clear neck exposed, watching the drugstore sign from the tail of his eye. Tattoo, neon, until the eye blears, while his solicitous tall sister, simple in blue, bending behind him, cuts his hair with her cheap shears. The arrow's electric red always reaches its mark. Successful neon. He coughs, impressed by that precision. His child's forehead, forever protected by his cap, is bleached against the lamplight as he turns his head and steadies to let the snippets drop. Erasing the failure of weeks with level fingers, she sleeks the fine hair, combing. You'll look fine tomorrow. You'll surely find something. They can't keep turning you down. The finest gentleman's not so trim as you. Smiling, he raises the adolescent forehead, wrinkling ironic now. He sees his decent suit laid out, new pressed, his car fare on the shelf. He lets his head fall, meeting her earnest, hopeless look, seeing the sharp blades splitting the darkened room, the impersonal sign, her motion, the blue vein, bright on her temple, pitifully beating. The Chickadee by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Piped a tiny voice hard by, gay and polite, a cheerful cry, chickadee, saucy note, out of a sound heart and a merry throat, as if it said, good day, good sir, fine afternoon, old passenger, happy to meet you in these places, when January brings new faces. The Butterfly's Ball by William Roscoe. Come, take up your hats, and away let us haste to the butterfly's ball and the grasshopper's feast. The trumpeter gadfly has summoned the crew, and the revels are now only waiting for you. On the smooth-shaven grass by the side of a wood, beneath a broad oak which for ages has stood, see the children of earth and the tenants of air for an evening's amusement together repair. And there came the beetle so blind and so black, who carried the emmet, his friend, on his back. And there came the gnat and the dragonfly too, and all their relations, green, orange, and blue. And here came the moth with her plumage of down, and the hornet with jacket of yellow and brown, who with him the wasp his companion did bring, but they promised that evening to lay by their sting. Then the sly little dormouse crept out of his hole, and led to the feast his blind cousin the mole. And the snail, with his horns peeping out of his shell, came fatigued with the distance, the length of an ell. A mushroom their table, and on it was laid a water-dock leaf, which a tablecloth made. The viands were various to each of their taste, and the bee brought the honey to sweeten the feast. With steps most majestic the snail did advance, and he promised the gazers a minuet to dance. But they all laughed so loud that he drew in his head, and went in his own little chamber to bed. Then as evening gave way to the shadows of night, their watchman, the glowworm, came out with his light. So home let us hasten while yet we can see, for no watchman is waiting for you and for me. A Shropshire Lad by A. E. Houseman. The street sounds to the soldier's tread, and out we troop to see. A single redcoat turns his head. He turns and looks at me. My man, from sky to skies so far, we never crossed before. Such leagues apart the world's ends are, we're like to meet no more. What thoughts at heart have you and I, we cannot stop to tell. But dead or living, drunk or dry, soldier, I wish you well. Inventory by Dorothy Parker. 4 be the things I am wiser to know: idleness, sorrow, a friend and a foe. 4 be the things I'd been better without: love, curiosity, freckles, and doubt. 3 be the things I shall never attain: envy, content, and sufficient champagne. 3 be the things I shall have till I die: laughter and hope and a sock in the eye. I may, I might, I must, by Marianne Moore. If you will tell me why the fen appears impassable, I then will tell you why I think that I can get across it if I try. To Autumn by John Keats. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with sweet kernel, to set to budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer hath o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press, with patient look, thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river shallows, borne aloft or sinking, as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. This is your host, Kathryn Lopez Luker. Thank you for joining us for this poetic interlude of Stories Come to Life. Be sure to join us next time when we begin another book. You can find a link to our podcast on the Marshall Public Library webpage, www.marshallpl.org. I'll talk to you again soon.